muti Chamber of Commerce vunalea mamu yu azivundo karibu.
Award 4 ba merbo le asiri ma ai kositu chance amani su muzo yozo mipe yo Chamber of Commerce ti madrisi amate gadenga podi amuni zitamena onvero onviko mameche obipini Chamber of Commerce de adwar mbele ya
di fudra
bazi kyodo ga fandi di adwa ba ti onja rumo dia deni Chamber of Commerce di association kan kwa mutiaze business iki promote ipi veni iki protect ipi a business community my interest protect ipi locally within a city, within a district, nationally and internationally the lady purpose banya mtidi form zura mtidi donda America dale nazuki likini economy mazo mbele so erediba a roll down entrepreneurs kan ku business community ke e kazo e matiujizo e connect zo with other business groups in other areas devene amuti chopi fepe amama choki resources ki ningonero amecho investments ki attracting ngonero amecho business relationship si ngonero amecho papili girikosende suzuri meyo na ngonero de mere so amuti di Uganda dia no devene ele ni reality na people ebe business mati ndondo kyoji denga podi andra amesuni de sawa idi amen ne ovozo government here ni ezans ki expert zori amutidi e mwandre were te divini Indians ki de modo envibo amutidi do divini improve were so Uganda Chamber of Commerce ebe adre vibrant especially amavo Arua de ale de mo directly Arua de might take over Chamber of Commerce around 2016 and the man Chamber of Commerce take is all from the former leadership there maybe yo karakaraki Andri Arua district Maliara because the under city yo sao mano vozo Chamber of Commerce are under Greater Arua denga Teregoni under Arua Madio Colony under Arua district vora ni under Arua including the municipality Money Tech is over there. We did a lot of community awareness. We enrolled membership and ma vice chairperson Andra Ereba Zingapi Chumalia vendor Rodeleni. It's taking a somebody for any business person. Any business person qualifies to be a member of Chamber of Commerce. Nyuzi, suozi, kakozi, as long as you are in Tojare, Ngaria, you qualify to be member of Chamber of Commerce. And it qualifies you to be member of Chamber of Commerce, you must pay money, you must subscribe. Ordinary, miscellaneous for Toro Alo, Modri, me ane member, me ade certificate be. Anything to do with the chamber, you a member.
So after how
that
long?
Is per year.
Okay.
Every year, me feel Toro Alo Modri. 40% be December secretariat, 60% is Zinga in the local area here with the leadership. Now, I silver, me category number is silver ni misling feel Turi Kalitoi. Me to ani qualify position as vice chair ara, secretary ara, coordinator ara. Any other position within chamber you qualify. Then last category is gold. You pay 500 and above and you qualify to be chairman like me. And now when you do this, you subscribe, you have to do this annual subscription. Me send that for yearly for you to be a member of Chamber of Commerce. You cease to be a member because membership is by subscription. So amani de chamber de Malia there, we achieved a lot of things. Coordinating business community with other groups, having advocacy for the business community, having advocacy and mediation between other bodies like Uganda Revenue Authority, where there are some issues of taxes. You coordinate, you mediate between the business community and the Uganda Revenue Authority on issues of taxation. You mediate between business community with the municipal authority or city authority over issues of taxes, over issues of revenue. You coordinate business groups from one region to another. You link the business groups. For example, I was able to coordinate businesses. I brought Chinese from China here, where I mobilized all the West Nile businessmen who held a meeting here over having industrial park in this country. These Chinese were brought in the country through General Salim Saleh. I was able to have them up to Arua here, where they promised to build 4 industrial parks in Uganda, 1 in Western, 1 in Central, 1 in Eastern, and 1 in Northern Uganda. So for Northern Uganda, we zeroed that to be in West Nile. But now, because of failure to have national grid here, these guys have already established 1 industrial park in Kampala with General Salim Saleh in Kapeka. They are waiting for us to have our national grid connected, and they will move here. Our businessmen in West Nile gave land already, so that has been earmarked. That was my intervention as Chamber of Commerce. I led the delegation of business community from Arua and Uganda to Germany in Berlin twice. My incoming chairman here attests witness to that. He was one of those who went for that business forum. And I also led a group of people to China. I brought people from Nigeria to have meetings here. So that connectivity, business networking is one of the key roles Chamber of Commerce plays. So these are all the things I did in my tenure. Yes. Because now you people of Arua Central decided to elevate me to the position of member of parliament. Yeah. You cannot be doing everything when others can also perform. So I thought when elections will be organized, I will hand over Chamber of Arua City to new leadership, and they move on as I remain a member. By handing over Chamber of Commerce leadership, that doesn't mean I cease to be a member. That's why I participated in this recently concluded election, and I am still a member of Chamber of Commerce, and I look forward to supporting Chamber of Commerce and moving forward. Yes. Now, coming to the question you were asking.
Yes, the dissenting voices, they seem to be quite many.
Dissenting voices came to be quite many as a result of, people want to lead. Leadership is a very big struggle in this country. People want to lead. But when you want to lead, you follow the right procedures. You follow the right channels. When I was not preparing to hand over Chamber and telling my people to do enrollment, by the time elections come, I am ready to relinquish power because I cannot now be in parliament. I can't be in Arua. I should not give platform for others to lead. Now, my membership in Arua City started mobilizing. When they mobilized, we had the annual General Assembly in 2021 and board meeting. In that board meeting at the Chamber Secretariat, it was resolved that a general national elections will be conducted this year, 2023, in December. Then when we went for the annual General Assembly of 2022, in, was it July or August, around there, the president, Madame Olive Chigongo, alluded to this again and emphasized that elections will be in 2023 December generally. Whoever is expressing interest will prepare, we should enroll. And now I embarked on this. I let my executive, my secretary, and those who were interested to continue mobilizing for membership so that we reach December 2023 and we conduct these elections. So now what the ascending messages, the voices that you are talking about came as a result of us wanting leadership. Now my brother Caesar expressed interest to lead, and of course he did a lot here to mobilize as a member of Chamber of Commerce. He is a member of Chamber of Commerce, he subscribes, and he was also doing mobilization, which was good, and he was interested in leadership. Then I told him, yes, I will prepare the ground. All of you keep mobilizing because I cannot limit entry to Chamber of Commerce. It is open for any person to enter. It is open for anybody to exit. So as they were now mobilizing, the mistake my brother Caesar made was to claim that the way you have just introduced him, that he is a former chairman or what that is wrong. Even the president put it clear in the General Assembly, in the annual General Assembly, that with the 10 cities which were created, where the cities came out of the residual districts like Arua, Gulu, Lira, Chamber of Commerce remains in the hands of the previous leadership of the Chamber of Commerce. Like me now, I was in charge of Arua district. My business establishment is in Arua Central, which is the former Arua municipality. With my executive, which was in Arua district, we take precedence. We remain the leadership. There is no interim leadership in Chamber of Commerce. You cannot have two leaderships. That was the confusion my brother Caesar found himself in to declare himself a chairman. No, allow me to explain this properly. This is the gist of the matter. So that confusion made him to now feel that he's a chairperson parallel to the leadership that was in my hands. But I sat with him, I said, my brother, let's mobilize, let's plan. Now, when time comes for elections, I'm not ready to contest. I want to relinquish this power to you. You will express your interest. People will vote you based on your ability and your expressions. And the president even put this very clear at the secretariat when we were having General Assembly, annual General Assembly, that whoever is expressing interest in leadership, she's aware that people like Honorable Atima may not now contest because he's not a member of parliament, is at that level. President said that in a big annual General Assembly, that all of us will come down, mobilize, but as of now, the leadership remains in the hands of Atima. So now, when we did mobilization, date was set for these elections. A date was set. Actually, before date was set by Chamber Secretariat, publication was done general, nationwide. After that publication, there was press conference done by the Office of the President's Minister for Presidency and the President of National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Madam Olive Chigongo, where all RDCs in Uganda were instructed that the chamber elections are coming in the months of October, November, and December. Nationally, it will be concluded. So these guys were briefed. We were not given the receipts to mobilize. I was given receipts because my brother Caesar here is a member. He was also given receipts to mobilize. So we now mobilized and combined this list together for paid up members, handed it over Chamber Secretariat, which Secretariat now sent here through the office of RCC to conduct elections.
Just
that's why
finish,
they concluded the elections.
Yes, Honorable, I'll definitely give you time. But just before you conclude that bit, is there any regulatory, okay, let's say maybe a law or constitution of Chamber of Commerce, apart from the president's pronouncements, which guide when elections should be done, when another administrative boundary, for instance, like Arua city, should be created, in which I thought the proceedings of the Chamber of Commerce could fall under?
Chamber of Commerce has its constitution. This is I told you, this is an organization that was formed a long time ago, way back even before the rule of Idi Amin. Worldwide, it has its constitution, it has rules and regulations, it even has guidelines of conducting elections. So even when the president communicated in this annual General Assembly, guidelines were given, the constitutions were attached, even as these elections were conducted, they were based on guidelines. So Chamber of Commerce does not operate without documents.
Okay, I'll give you about 2 or so minutes just to comment about the election process.
The election process went on well. In my view, it went on well because there was nobody left out. The list of people organized by my brother Caesar were submitted to the Chamber Secretariat. The list of people organized by my executive. I was in Kampala, I was not around, I had a lot of engagements that side. So I tasked my executive, Mr. Munduni Rose, Josiga Bakole, and other members here to mobilize the membership. Ever since we had previous members who have been subscribing, but of course now we are going for elections. So receipts were given to both parties. So we mobilized and subscribed these paid up members to the secretariat. So it was not the secretariat that came with the list and gave it through the office of RCC for the commercial officer to conduct elections. So it was a free and fair elections organized, and that both teams came at the venue. Much as there were disagreements initially, the first date of the election was postponed because my brother Caesar and the team raised some concerns, and the team from Secretariat said, okay, if there are gaps, if we didn't display the names on time, we are going to do that, which they now followed, and all the criteria, all the steps were now followed, and this election date was now set. Even all the team members came in. It was only when maybe my brother Caesar realized that he will not convince the people to elect him, he decided to pull his nomination, his nomination form out and walked away from the election. But otherwise, for me, I did not come there to choose a candidate. I did not come there to say I need this one so to lead, but I was ready to hand over whoever takes over chamber leadership.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Jackson, for explaining to us. And actually, just before we continue, we invited the commercial officer, Joe Belaiko, to be part of this talk show because as a presiding officer, we thought he needed to have been here to clarify one or two things. But because of bad health, that's how we communicated it. he wasn't able to join us here for the talk show. And so we will proceed. Atamva, Caesar, Mega, you've had basically the explanation of Honorable Atima Fedi. Maybe clearly, you could have your side of the story, especially in the first of all, the creation of what you people call the interim leadership of Arua City. Was there any basis for this creation? As the first question, at Kuni, there's a contestation that no, the leadership, the former leadership actually remained, and yet even for the number of talk shows we had here, we invited you as what we call the interim. So was there any basis for that creation, Madora?
Our four, ba everybody in Anira, Ameri, yo, ba Messelia, dear, a man chomve, it is senior in aspects of life. I'm still struggling with the titles because the title Azikichi, I think the English have made us to misuse certain titles. Some people do not deserve some of the titles that have been bestowed on them. I'll rather prefer now to use Mr. For this purpose. First of all, I'm disappointed that afani diayo commercial officer ni diayo because you're very chamber bedi center you're the dudere lete commercial officer, and the commercial officer amanteleri one who is very knowledgeable about your chamber of work. He is a commercial officer who has high level of integrity, who is not that cheap to be compromised. That is the kind of commercial officer I would have loved. But the fact that we had one who tried his best to move to the challenge and guide, disappointed. Straight to your question of how did we become, first of all, Arua City Chamber of Commerce? Or how did we assume a title of an interim team? Now, I really sympathize because the truth is English is not our own. I have seen how people whom I would not have expected to struggle with simple English words still struggle to get their meaning, but nevertheless, they will catch up. Before I just answer, I want to ask you, our moderator, to read for me. These are correspondences. These are official correspondences between me and the Secretariat in Kampala. So you have all the records. You have these are email-generated things. You have the traces to prove that this is genuine thing.
So if you could just maybe because of time we may not read the whole document, but just give us highlights of what they talk about.
I'll definitely read. I wrote to the president as a member.
That is Madame
Olive Chigongo.
Okay.
I wrote to her. This was way back in 2022. I wrote to her on 24th of February 2022, and at the center of my letter was a request for guidance on establishment of Arua City Chamber of Commerce branch. You are aware that Chamber of Commerce is a national body. Whatever you're talking about here are branches. And in reply to that, this is what she wrote. She got back to me, and this is what she wrote. Arua team, this is brilliant. Well done for organizing yourself under UNCCI flag. Keep it up. The Secretariat told me you were meeting on Zoom today. I believe they will brief me, and we can forge a way forward. Warmest regards. And after our Zoom meeting, this was the response from the one who is in charge of membership mobilization and the branch development. This is what he wrote. This is Mr. Kabagambe. This is what he wrote. Dear Caesar, reference is hereby made to your communication here below dated 25th February and attachments here above. In line with Uganda, with government NDP 3 priorities, your request is fine. We have to ensure that all satellite cities are covered under UNCCI leadership mechanisms. This is the same practice in other countries which I visited in the past under SHIDA, UNCCI capacity building like UK, London, Chamber of Commerce, etc., Sweden, and the rest. We therefore should grant you express permission to go ahead and have a mobilization coordination team in preparation for the fully fledged elected team. The mobilization coordination team will temporarily assist the UNCR Secretariat and Government District team respect to organize the business in city. Fine, you have got, that is an official communication. And I want to say from that, we have had so many engagements, and then you would have asked also Mr. Jackson, who says it was an error for you to say that I'm an interim chair for Arua City. Out of the activities that we have been doing, we engaged with the Bank of Uganda as Arua District Chamber of Commerce branch of Uganda National Chamber of Commerce, an event which had the entire West Nile here on 25th of August. Why didn't they stop it? Where were they? Who were the right people in the office? Why didn't they stop it? We had the official account of UNCCI given to Arua City branch, those of us who are in the interim. Why would the Secretariat deal with the people it does not recognize? When you learned of this, why didn't you stop it? Because you are the chairperson now of what is called Greater Arua. I don't know whether that really practical exists. Because Madio Kolo, Teregu, Maracha, and the rest, they are independent entities. So you can't be a chairperson of all those independent entities and you say you're serving people. That is absolutely wrong. If we were illegal, why didn't they take any legal decision and follow us legally?
So in this
and lastly,
yes,
we were able to receive certificates for 42 members that are paid up under Arua City branch of Uganda National Chamber of Commerce. Why didn't they stop it? Because if we are illegal, then you had the right to stop. Now, all this has been open. We have been engaging, we have been having business with the Secretariat as an independent branch. So it is absolutely wrong to say we assumed we took up a title on our own, and yet we have the correspondences of approval.
Okay, so we're just going for a short break. But when we return, the question I want to pose to you, so maybe as we return, you'll just answer it, is in the whole process of the formation of the branch of Arua City, was this, allow me use this word, you may not agree with it, but the your mother, Arua District, the Greater Arua, for which Jackson was the chair, were they in the know of this, or were there any disagreements, or what was the process of your formation? Because I know in good faith you would have wanted, okay, since there has been a Greater Arua and then we are breaking as a Arua City, involved them maybe in the whole process. Were there, did you disagree there? What was the whole process? Basically, this is the question you will answer when we return from the break. Listener, our destination is midday, and so do stay tuned. This is the Adguatara.
Customer deposit protection fund ni matambani tazu million mudidp eyo Absa Bank Uganda Limited Vledi Insurance Regulatory Authority of Uganda ni yoneni.
Okay. Yes, megama imirava liza na mavutiasi akimduate mini abatara maduru andrumalia mayo nze amuti tujara ni Chamber of Commerce ibile opetade bi ye ani ane yo azifukidi etekini lui dini ting staff kudi tingoni mandu bi yo di mapaba di banikili dini atava daitabo siza megali temiti amani yimbuzu were aitadiru ami tajinsi adan sandra formation di Arua City vile leadership maalia branch di maalia di mother branch under Arua City vile terego madio colonels wana direct diki process malada adansi bikana yo niyo di madiara ya kane ebiki deo ni koya kane bikana yo nira ani afeki di mini guidance ngoi as a mother dini mega ma mi dika mozio na bedele
our phone ale do inira kale yo azuma zako ile yo ndere ma azaba kweri ma ri invivle ko le min re yo ndere mo laki ngoni ari Arua ni mucha city rubo anira bazimu imitie permission zi yozo kine ba moja the title ba president ma representative ru city ba moja from what we have been calling as the RDC to RCC bazimu vina matia advise yazikine district ma commercial officer ma the city ma commercial officer ma the east lenko it became automatic that a city was created and structures changed, boundaries changed, the way businesses are conducted changed. And therefore, there was no need to go to Arua district to seek permission, because on 1st of July 2020, we became a city, and everything about the structures had to change. And therefore, by the fact that we had the leadership of the Arua District Chamber, and there were a lot of changes also within it, we already learned then who was the chairperson became an MP for Central. And therefore, it didn't need to wait for an election, because when you are in charge to make sure service is delivered, you don't wait to drag people. There was no service delivery. And also, going back to 2016, I was part of the process. We were still then under the district. I want this to be denied by the people who have been holding that position, that there was no election. The only opportunity for an election was distorted, was disrupted. And then I'm told that a group of people had a meeting in Hilltop Hotel and elected themselves, just appointed themselves, just like what you saw happened recently in Heritage. There was basically a group of people who sat and they divided posts. That is not an election. And therefore, from that time, you have never had the chamber office for the district. Have you ever been told where the office has been? Never. This has been a briefcase, a pocket kind of business of Chamber of Commerce. And you don't run business people's association like that. If there is no physical address for the chamber for 7 years, how would I, who is my rightful thinking, recognize, and who do I conduct? I had no one to hand over, to pick a handover from. The city was totally new, and we had to pick up with the challenge. We looked at the vision of the city. We looked at the vision of the country, Vision 2040. We look at the NDP 3. We look at the direction the government was taking and the position of the private sector in playing its role in contributing to the growth and development of the country, the city, and that we could not wait for another person who had no address, who had taken a title just to run an individual interest. And there was basically no chamber.
So it's fair to say the interim leadership of Arua City did not actually recognize that there was any other.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because if you have no address, if you have no executive, if you just have a people known by name who cannot even explain what chamber is, that's why even today you have to struggle to explain to the people what chamber is. If chamber has been existent, this should have been a brand known by the people.
Okay.
So this indicators that people are trying to get on board others by force, just the way they collected borders recently, and people who don't have business to come and participate in an election.
That we can address, but then let's talk about let's talk about the issue of the election process. You expressed interest, and then later on, I'm told you withdrew. What is the circumstance under which you did this?
Let me tell you exactly what happened. We, as the branch of Uganda National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, had nothing that could be a business between us and those who claimed they were the leaders of the district. Nothing. Based on the correspondence I've already shown you, we had an express permission to operate. It was justified by our transactions that we have been doing with the Secretariat. This is a branch. This is not an entity where you are restricted. We have read the Constitution, and we're all doing everything within the Constitution. We got the guidelines for the elections. This is what we are running against, or we did. And therefore, we had nothing to do with the district. So what took us there was this. When we wrote to Kampala and gave them, in line with the guidelines, we gave them a date for our elections, we gave them a venue, and they confirmed this. Now, what now disturbed us, all of a sudden, we found that there was another team that smuggled its list and got it joined with ours. Now, what took me personally to Heritage on 13th was we wanted, if they are having a business of Arua district, we didn't want them to have a fake evidence that we were party to that, because we found our names were on a list of the district, which I will now think. Because it was not the election for the seat. So we went there to demand.
Sorry, let's just have this clarified. Were you contesting before you withdrew, or you were not contesting?
My submission of my nomination form was to the commercial officer of the city. It was not to the commercial officer of the district. But when I learned the commercial officer of the city was officiating an election that had the district and the city together, this was confusing. I had to move and pick my things. And secondly, they were doing something in a venue that we didn't approve of. And we had to let the whole public know that there was a broad day robbery happening somewhere. And then there's need to, when you see thieves, you shout. Mindulugba. So I'm gonna Mindulugba Ogwe Madria, because let people know Ogo Kiriadi.
Okay.
Now, but
so Gora is in the context of
yeah.
not dead.
No. It's in that context. So
okay.
we had to let the world know something ill is happening. By the way, in 2016, when the circumstances I told you happened, the commercial officer for the district was absent because he saw the circumstances, and then the cow of the district then delegated the senior community development officer, who went and witnessed what happened and wrote a report. And let me just read two things in his report. One thing said,
report is not authentic. I doubt.
You may doubt its authenticity, but it is signed. It is signed. Yeah. This is what he wrote after several observations.
Okay.
The second observation he made was this: as the two factions kept exchanging bitterly in the meeting, sometimes to the extent of confronting each other physically, I noticed that a group led by Mr. Juro Fenhas were the ones holding the current leadership, who ideally should have been the ones to hand over power to the incoming. This group raised issues concerning legitimacy of the members of the group led by Atima Jackson, and this Jackson kept on communicating with someone at the Uganda National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which made me to think that that person at the UNCI secretariat was already taking sides. However much the Jura group tried to raise pertinent issues concerning finances, registration of members, etc., the other group was simply dodging and rushing processes at the same time, because they had mobilized a big number whose membership authenticity was doubted.
Okay.
This was his conclusion. Let me just read the conclusion and I stop.
Yes.
In my concluding remarks, I noted that elections may only be organized on the grounds that the UNCCI Secretariat clearly comes out to address the key issues that have been affecting the elections. Secondly, if they go ahead to work with one group, as already noticed, then they would only be preparing grounds for more regrettable occurrences in the future. And that's exactly what happened. What was put in that report occurred recently, and it was the ugly scene that Uganda National Chamber of Commerce and Secretariat missed the point. And I blame them greatly for causing confusion in this business of Chamber of Commerce.
Just in a few seconds, actually, I'm borrowing this 1 minute. Now we are at this point. Election, you withdrew, and then under those circumstances you have just explained, and we find ourselves most likely even in the context of what you have explained, in more confusion. Exactly. Now there is a leadership. Would you maybe work with the chair who went maybe unopposed or elected in that sense, or what is your immediate way forward?
You could guess my answer. One, I made clear to you that there was no election.
The appointment or whatever you will call it.
Because
sorry, really,
because
now have many words
in a situation why we reached that point, one, the guidelines were totally ignored.
Okay.
The voter register was totally a combination of lies of people who are non-existent and who do not have businesses. There was the element of bribery. Money was paid at all angles. There are people who participated in election. Their membership was paid by an individual. We have some proof that one person paid for about 200 people, and it was to do all it takes to make sure these people come to vote, whether they had business or not. And each person who participated was paid money to be there and live. Now, this was not election. And thirdly, how do you deploy about 15 military people, police, and the soldiers for an election of business people?
The RCC
is here.
That's the sole reason why he's here.
That's very beautiful. So that was the directive. Who was coming in to make an attack?
Okay.
And even you were deployed goons. By the way, within the venue, there were deployed goons who were in specific positions that were able, and we have some recording to that effect.
Okay.
And we can use it at an appropriate time.
For now, let's leave that there.
That was not any activity we can recognize.
Okay.
And we can never recognize.
All right, thank you.
Whether it yielded, it gave birth to people who are carrying titles. That was a result of their desperation to have titles. And they can still have the titles.
That's quite clear. Thank you so much, Caesar. And what you saw about Atima giving to me was actually a request to respond. And definitely the reason why I have the four of you here is so there is a right to reply. And Honorable will give you that chance at a later time to respond. And also, really, at the end of the day, I believe there will be consensus as we walk out of this room. When I return from the break, there is the RCC. You only have one major issue, which is actually what he raised, the deployment and the management of security, and that is what you'll explain, and after which we'll go to Mr. Debo as the new, which is going to disagree with. You will forgive me really for crisscrossing, but the new chair and what is the way forward there is also going to talk about that. And then we'll open our call lines later on. I do stay tuned to the radio.
Moderator mini zitamini zidasi. Amaruiza Maham Zamili, my deputy RCC, Arua Central Division DE. Dengamu direct question on vehicle. Alle mini mafi election gangone alvunjachi. Le baba understand kichi. In Jersey, we had a Zoom meeting with the office of the president. In that, the president of Chamber of Commerce, Oliver Chigongo, was present. All the RCCs, the commercial officers, the DSOs were assigned to be in that meeting. All were there. One of the issues we discussed there was the issue of Chamber of Commerce. And it was on instruction that the RDCs must take charge to make sure that elections should happen and peacefully without any fictions. Now, we were eagerly waiting for when the date for election could come. Not until I got information through Caesar, the Trinity. Before that official communication came, my first communication about this election, I received it through Caesar. Caesar brought to me a list of people who are going to conduct, who are going to participate in voting. There were 54 members. I told him, fine, you have brought for me this document, but how do I get the official letter from the headquarters? He told me he will bring the letter. I kept on waiting. Instead of bringing for me a letter, he came, he told me, it was, that date was, I've forgotten the exact date, but it was on Thursday. He told me elections are supposed to happen the following day, which was like on Friday. I said, is this one serious? Then later, on that very Friday, I interested myself, I made a communication. They said, no, there is no election until I should receive an official communication from the center. By then, our senior RCC was not in place because you remember recently there were a lot of changes and so on. Yeah. So our Madam RCC was transferred, but there was no person in the office. It was the deputy of Ivu who was acting. And I was also posted that very week when Caesar came there. I was like 3 days in office. So we started now have engagements to see how we could conduct this election. When these people sent a person to come and conduct election, Caesar disagreed. He said, no, election is not going to take place. The reason is he needed more 2 weeks to do preparation and mobilization of voters. 2, he needed clear instructions or guideline from National Chamber of Commerce to conduct this election. The matter became so chaotic, we had to agree. And I took my decision as the RCC to make sure that the election was postponed. Caesar requested 2 weeks to conduct election. He needed a guideline for the election. He wanted a facilitation to organize the election because he assumed he was the interim chair who should have taken lead in organizing the election according to him. Then he said he needed this list to be displayed to show that to the voters that they are either voters or their names are not there for someone to become a voter. Now, we wrote a letter addressed to the president of Chamber of Commerce, Oliver Chigongo, to clarify on these issues. And the election should be postponed at least for 2 weeks to allow people, address these anomalies, which was done. We waited. Now, Caesar submitted a list in Kampala. And then the former leadership of Chamber of Commerce submitted what? A list in Kampala. The Chamber of Commerce head office generated a voters register, wrote instruction to the RCC, gave 2 dates. That date was there was a date 11, which was on Friday, and the 13th, which was on Monday. They gave us 2 dates. We called these 2 parties. Caesar was there, the other party was there, to tell them election is going to take place either of the 2 dates. Caesar was not convinced with the date of Friday. He personally came to me. He talked to me. He said this election, Matthias, is going to take place, but he is not convinced. Then he brought another list of 74 members. I asked him whether have you submitted this list to Kampala. He told me yes, he has submitted. I said, okay, if you have submitted, fine. Meaning that he had already added more 20 members who are his voters actually. So when he told me he has already submitted today.
No, I need to correct. I didn't say that was submitted the second list to Kampala. We didn't.
Let me finish.
Okay.
Because our conversation with him, no one was there. It was between me and him.
Okay.
So when he brought this list, it was I was already aware that he has 74 voters, according to what he told me. So I was now waiting for the final list to come from Kampala. When the list came, those 20 people were not there. There were only 54 original lists which he gave me the other time. So I knew that if he had submitted 74, meaning that the 20 people were not considered, the reason is best known by the headquarters. So when we engaged them that we are going to display, he didn't want actually the display to happen. But the person who is presiding over the election was commercial officer. He did his part because his facilitation was given. Because when I called the sender said commercial officer should make a budget. The man made a budget of 800,000, which we sent it to the headquarters. The headquarters instructed the former leadership to avail this money, which was 800,000. Commercial officer confirmed to me that he received the what? the 800,000 to conduct the what? Election. Now, after that, the display was put. Members started coming to check their names and so on. So, we were sure that election was going to take place. The nomination forms were availed. Caesar picked the nomination forms, he filled them and submitted. Then the current chairman, with also his team, he also filled his nomination form and submitted to the commercial officer. Based on these correspondences and the submission of the nomination forms, it was right for the office of RDC to confirm that the election process was fair, free and fair. Our work was to provide security. Now, shortly after that, by Friday, like election was going to be on Monday, people started changing moods. Our communication with Caesar started changing. When I needed him to have some conversation, he could not respond as he used to be. I kept quiet because as a security personnel, I needed to anticipate what is likely to happen so that I be on top of issues. Because people's life and property is very important and it is within my jurisdiction to manage that. So now, what happened was I started receiving intelligence information that people are mobilizing themselves to come and disorganize what? Election. Okay. It was from both sides, not from his side, not from the current chairman's side. Both sides I was receiving what? Communication. But as a security personnel, I didn't want to undermine that. I got to prepare myself how to manage this. You remember I was alone in the office. My senior was out for official duty. My other colleague was also out. Even up to now, I'm the one. I'm alone, coming to more than a week. I'm the one in the office. So I had to involve the security, the police and so on, to make sure that the elections should take place without damaging people. Okay. I deployed.
Which I think is a very clear
yes,
part of security.
But I have not finished. I want people to understand me
yes,
very well.
In 2 minutes time, sir.
Yes.
Our time is running fast. Okay.
So now, what happened during the election day, in the morning after the deployment, after what, commercial officers set the people have started coming. Now at the gate, we had agreed the names should be verified by the police at the entrance. The copy of the register was put at the entrance. Now people started coming. It was Mr. Caesar who came to me, who said, RCC, my people mostly are very far. Others are coming. You know, Arua city is big. The central division is near, but the Ive division is a bit far. Now he said some of the voters are very far. We had agreed the election was to start. By 9, people are starting voting. Because of that, I had to make a communication with the commercial officer to give it 30 minutes to support the request of Caesar to make sure that his voters should arrive and enter. And indeed, some people came. Some people came, they entered. Reaching by 9:30 was to close the what? We are going to close the gate. Caesar told me he still have some people who are coming. I asked him how many people. He said close 20. I told him let them come. Now reaching at the gate, verification started showing that the people who are trying to enter were not on the list, but they had the what? A receipt. Now the problem on the receipt could not bear what? A stamp, because some of his receipt had a stamp. Now the last bunch of the people who came had they had receipt but no stamp on the receipt, and their names were not on the registry. Because of avoiding a vacuum of those other fights and so on, I had to allow 9 people of Caesar, not even this party, to know. The security can testify that 9 people. I told them to enter. The last person who came was now Mr. Achawere. Achawere came when it was 15 minutes to 10. Towards people are going to lining up. He was already battling at the gate with people. I called him. I said, this is a person known, a businessman known in town. Police help me allow this man. I allowed him I told him to be sober. Elections like that, we are the same people. Kindly help me. And my reason of allowing him was to make sure that, because since he is a reputable businessman who is also well known, he can talk to Caesar to try to calm the situation. Because I started showing Caesar's mood was already changing. So when Atima entered, he met Caesar. Actually, the thing became worse. There was almost a fight. Caesar had to go and withdrew his what? Nomination form. When people are now 5 minutes to start what? Elections. Now, if you check all these scenarios and so on, and the good thing in that election, I had requested the headquarters that if election is going to take place on Monday, as they are stipulated, I want leadership of the center to send at least some representative to come and affirm that the election is going to take place and it is within the what? The guideline and within the law. Those two people came. They even addressed the what? The voters.
The ones who verified
Have you
the
seen that?
reading of the name.
Now they were the ones even verifying the list. So based on these reasons, I have not seen any sign that the election was not free or fair.
All right.
Now, if there are some irregularities,
yes,
when I address people at the close of the whatever, I said it is within the mandate and the right of the Caesar and the team to challenge the credibility and authenticity of the election through legal means. It can be a court and so on. Yes.
Okay.
So my work was merely to aid the support of security and so on, to make sure that no life was injured and the property was not destroyed, because that was a hotel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ham, for the explanation from security. And when we return from the break, we'll have the chair, the current chair, Mr. Debo Ronald. And the question to you is just actually one question, because now you come at a time when there is the tossing left and right, but then the business community and all of us who live in this city are looking at you to say, okay, the vibrance of our city depends on the vibrancy of the business community, in which now you are at the helm. So how are you going to try to, diffuse these tensions, but bring all the business community together, in which we are actually all beneficiaries? That is the only question I am going to ask you. In about 10 minutes, you will finish that, and then we will also see Honorable Atima had there were some direct issues to you. We'll give you 5 minutes, after which we'll pick calls, and that's how we shall proceed until they find
who voted me, who stood by me, who believe in me, despite the turbulent election process. You know, as the RCC explained, this election was postponed the first time when we all came. Our voters were ready. We knew the Caesar team, the venue organized by the Chamber of Commerce, headed by Jackson. They had booked this tropical suites, while Caesar's team booked Rose Villa. So when there was disagreement on the venue, the RCC directed that we should all go to Mayor's Garden the first time.
We accepted.
So we also accepted. So they mobilized. You know, these are all members of Chamber of Commerce. For me, I was mobilizing both groups. There was nothing like Caesar's group and the other group. For me, I know these are all voters. I had my manifesto. I prepared on that morning. Actually, 7:15, I was in the voting place. I called the deputy RCC. I said, I'm here. I don't see chairs. It is raining. I'm ready to vote. Where are the voters? Where is the commerce office and all that? So he told me, because the weather is not good, he's going to consider another venue, probably coming back to Tropical Suites.
Okay.
So I went back to reorganize myself. Shortly, the deputy RCC called and said I should come with my the incoming vice chairperson. He's calling the Caesars team. Let's come and agree on the venue. So we rushed there. We knew we were going to agree on the venue. Reaching there, Caesar started mobilizing people, one after another. A meeting which was supposed to be for about 10 people became a crowd. It became a rally. So many people came. Chaos started. All that thing took us by surprise. So even the commerce officer was scared. He was talking like, He has a family, widow, and all that. Then, the other side, the Kampala people got scared. Like, people from his camp were saying, if election happens here, blood will pour. So now, what is all this violence about? We just observed it. And the thing which irritated him that day was that issue, that man who said, if elections happen here, blood will pour. And that is the second time he's talking about blood. I don't want to mention his name, but everyone, you know what happened that day. I told him, why are you always interested about blood? Are you a carnivore? Are you a lion? I really confronted him because it's not the first time he's always talking about blood. That man has affinity for my blood. That is Atsewere.
Very unfortunate.
Always talking about my blood. By the way, if something goes wrong on me in this town, the first person to be asked.
Moderator, I think
here,
this
so
is being
not,
quoted out of context.
Keep the names
This is
off.
being quoted out of context.
No, I'm
It's okay.
saying,
No.
I'm advised
No.
that you keep the names
Okay.
off.
Well, you
Sorry.
just have to apologize for that.
Yeah, keep the
just
names,
apologize for
keep
that
the names off.
Well,
and move on.
For the sake of the debate, you know, we are talking about life here. I cannot apologize for somebody who's after my life.
No, but
Let's
see,
keep the
to-
names
to-
off. Just
So
put the issue.
for the
Put the
issue
issue.
of
That's what
the
I've
name,
guided.
okay, I'm sorry, the person is not here, but that is the temper of the election.
Okay.
So now we all agreed with whatever they want. They say they want the two lists to be put together, to be submitted, to be displayed, election to be pushed by 2 weeks. Everything they accepted, we said is okay. We will go with it. So when the second week came, there were 2 dates. There was that date on Friday and a date on Monday. I was supposed to travel somewhere. When the RCC called us, they preferred Monday. I said, okay, I will wait for that Monday. So when the Monday came, okay, before Monday, social media. Caesar, you know what happened on social media? You started mobilizing people, or even I tried to say people were together. Let's cease fire. You even posted there, we are not together. There's nothing like what. I tried to play it cool. So generally, the situation, what these people wanted was they didn't want any chamber election in Arua city. And they were using violence. Throughout, even on the election day, when they started violence, I told my people, let's keep calm. Let's not play in their game. What they want is violence to erupt. They want to beat people. They are talking about, you know, chamber is an autonomous business organization. Chamber started in the US, as the Honorable alluded to. 1933. Chamber has no tribe. Chamber has no religion. Chamber has no ethnicity. What is in chamber is the political economy. We are all poor. We are business people. Businesses interlink. So that concept of chamber, we have not understood it very well. Some people want to tag chamber to a religion, others want to tag it to ethnicity, and so on. That is why there's a lot of confusion. This confusion did not start in elections. I've been a member of chamber. We have gone to very many places.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, moderator and the listeners, each time we went out, Arua chamber was always being ashamed. You go to a conference in Kampala, there's a chamber chairperson who comes from this place, others come from this place. All of a sudden, Arua, there are 2 chairmen. There are 2 secretaries. There are 2 what? Now, I mean, doesn't they keep in poste? Telling you, doesn't they keep in poste? Chamber, you know, they say Atima Jackson is the chairperson chamber of Arua. Even that correspondence is talking about. The president wrote the Arua team.
Yes.
Their Arua team. She didn't say Arua city. Because when these cities came to place, there were legislation in place. There were laws to designate RCCs, from RDCs to RCC, from this to that. Now, chamber is not a government thing. Chamber is run differently. Though it is put there, it is under Ministry of Trade, but the way it operates, it has not reached that state where an RDC becomes an RCC. You get the point? So what has happened in Arua City, some people organized themselves very fast, appointed themselves, they became interim, they became what? Unfortunately, what the center did, it is to arm this wrong group. The secretariat gave receipts to that wrong group. The leadership of chamber is elected.
Yes.
Caesar in his entire life has never been elected as a president or a chairperson of Chamber of Commerce. He appointed himself with his other colleagues and they became the interim. So that interim was fighting the real chamber. I was in both camps. I was seeing this. I remained silent until I knew there would be election. I'll come up. Even if Honorable Jackson stood, I told him we shall be 3 candidates. Caesar, Honorable Jackson, and me. Everybody will present their manifesto and the voters will decide. So the issue the chamber secretariat did, the mistake they did,
They apologized for
they
it.
apologized for it. They armed, if I'm to use the political way, they armed the militia group with a receipt. Now this militia group wanted to
And it
overthrow,
was in good faith, by the way.
because it's all about
You can't do the wrong thing in good faith. You admit it is right.
Now, moderator, I'm a gentleman. When I was talking, when Caesar was talking and this one, I didn't interrupt.
Please go ahead.
So
You have protection. I
That-
have
you know,
I
that
have,
confusion.
okay, something called a console here which has buttons. So for now, I am going to put the others off. So I will allow you to talk.
Yeah.
Continue.
So this type of confusion is one of the things motivated me to come up. We want a clean chamber. Chamber is for business people. You know, business is a very, very hard thing to do. We go through a lot. So we want a leadership that knows our pain. I started doing business also when I was in P7. I used to sell chapati and cigarette, supermarkets in my hand. I would walk around, Father, that place where they drink pete. Grab. Grab. So when I was in P7, that was what I used to do. In the afternoon, I move around, grab, selling that thing. When I'm in school, I had employed somebody. I didn't know that I was already creating employment. During the day, I give it to somebody. Or when I want to read, I give it to some other guy. He goes to sell the cigarette. So, so basically, so business has a lot of challenges. It is not fiction. It is not theory. It is not something to be proud about. The leadership of chamber is a sacrifice. It is a service you're offering to the business community. We want them to come together. We want them to be very many, so that when we talk to RCC about issues of business, they will listen to us. This, up to election time, there are only 220 members of chamber. Okay? Now our target is to raise that number to 3,000. We want to have a critical mass up to the trading centers from town here, even other districts. We are not fighting about territorial, domination. Ours is to bring business people together. Let's advocate for our policies together. Let's network. Let's look for market out there. That is what we want to do.
Okay.
So away from this election, the election was free and fair. Now that election, why there was deployment, I told RCC, they float you as if there's no government. That meeting which happened in Deputy RCC's office, I went home in pain. There was no security. People were doing things the way they want. Impunity, tribalism. What? There was no order. I really expressed that to RCC. I was happy. The next day they told me security will be there. And indeed, by the time I went there, the police had already deployed. So the election was free and fair. The challenge that has been here was chamber is not a political party. There's no opposition in chamber. The mistake the honorable team did was to allow this illegal group to operate. There are times when they told me they had to come and remove them from talk shows here.
Exactly.
Actually, that time I was tuned to a talk show. I could know what was going on in the studio. They removed them because they felt they are not legitimate. There are police cases right now of impersonation. Yeah. Jackson said they should not continue with that case because of harmony. Yeah. This election day, we arrested people with false receipts. The photos are here. I will show you. The people, if you see the business people are talking about. And another thing that I want them to apologize about is calling our business community as
borders.
Yeah.
First of all, border is an industry. Okay, a respectable industry in this country. The president knows the role of border. If border packed, if the border went on strike here one day, this city will be paralyzed.
Yes.
So they are doing trade, they are doing commerce. But if you see that list, I told them, now the list has come, show me the borders on the list. These are reputable businessmen.
Yeah.
Some of them, I went with them to Germany.
Yeah.
Respectable guys.
Under my leadership.
Under the leadership of Jackson, we went to Germany. We presented West Nile there,
Yes.
in Berlin. So you can't come and say these are border people. The impunity, the disrespect, the chaos. Now, we are now going to a new chapter. A new chapter where we want to bring everybody together. We are all members of chamber, including me. This chairman thing is just a title. What I want is let's all come together. Let's forget the past. Elections always come with tension. Another thing, bribe. You know, bribe is a criminal offense. I beg you,
Allegation.
stop maligning people in bad things. I beg you. Because one day, you know, people, when you keep quiet, it doesn't mean that we don't feel the pain. If somebody says you have bribed, you have stolen, you are corrupt, you're what? You know, those things hurt. But for the sake of brotherliness, we have kept quiet. Let that thing cease from today. Because when you say that, somebody may give you the opportunity to what? To prove. And when we say that opportunity, when that opportunity comes, you will say we are unfair. RCC said, if you are not contented with the electoral process, go to court. Court is just a few meters from here. That's the best way to express yourself. If you're not on social media, not on radio. Okay. So, let's one more minute and then we'll go to some other thing. Yes. Now, going forward, we have inherited a very difficult economy, not just chamber, in the country right now. If you see, there are about 1.1 million SMEs in Uganda, and 80% of this are, you know, the non-formal small businesses, and they contribute to 80% of Uganda's GDP. That means we have the economy is run by the private sector. And this private sector are the people who want to bring together. And of this, you find 1.8 million. There are some small businesses which need to be formalized. They are by youth, the refugees, and so on. They are still there. We want to bring them together.